Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 9th day of January 2019. I was trying to get everything up here and still talk at the same time. It's like not so easy. I'm getting an earlier start this morning. We're not going to walk today. It's been really drizzly, and that all turned to ice. So, and the other thing we have here on the high desert, I live in Central Oregon, and if you're familiar with the Portland area and the Salem area and all that, that's called the Valley in Oregon. And over there, you have lots of rain and continuing westward to the coast, you have lots of rain. Eugene is very rainy. But over here now in Central Oregon, we're on the high desert. And so we're actually at about 3,000 feet above sea level where we live. And you go further on into Bend, we're in Redmond, and when you go further on into Bend, now you're up at about 5,000 feet above sea level. So, you're getting into the different pine trees and all of that. So, as opposed to the juniper and the sage that's down here, you get ponderosa pines and lodgepole pines and different things like that up there, but still juniper and sage. So it's a mixture. A lot of manzanita grows, and it's just you don't get the rhododendrons and azaleas you get over there in the valley or up on, say, Mount Hood. But, we still have the Three Sisters over here and Mount Bachelor and Mount Jefferson and all of that. So it's a beautiful area, different type of climate, though. And we get a thing called freezing fog. And what that does is it basically coats all the trees like a flocked Christmas tree would look. And it's just gorgeous. I remember when we first came over here, we had some friends that lived over here, and we actually bought our place in 1981. And but in our coming over here, that's what we encountered. It was snowing, but the best part of it, there was some snow on the ground, but it was freezing fog that was on everything. And so the whole area was just, it was just beautiful. I happen to think juniper trees are beautiful anyway. They have such character to them. There's no two that are the same. And, but to see them like that, it was just incredible. So, of course, we were just enchanted with the area. And so we looked for a place to buy, and we found this one, and we've been here ever since. But that's what we've been dealing with the last few days, is a bunch of freezing fog, and we're just not a foggy area, not like the Portland area is, or anywhere along the I-5 corridor, or anywhere over there. It's in the valley or on the coastal areas. You get, it's so rainy and so wet, and it gets so foggy, and it's hard to see when you drive. And at least it is for me now. I didn't have any problem when I lived there, but after we moved here, going back there, it was just a few years back. We were coming back from a business trip, and we decided not to spend the night after we flew in, and so we decided just to come on home. But it was raining, and it was so dark, and I was driving, and the glare was awful, and oh, I did not remember what it was like, because over here it's different. We don't have that same experience. But the fog is it can be as thick as anything on the coast ever hoped to be. So there were times when we moved here, we would start out going to the grocery store in the fog, and we'd have to turn around because there was no way to see. There just was no way to see. But when it leaves its after effects, you really can't complain too much because it's so beautiful. But we just don't like to go out when it's, walking when it's icy. So you start worrying about falling and things like that. So, and when you're old, you don't heal so quickly. So anyway, let's count 13 and see what we have for today on this icy and cold morning. Well, the sun's out, so hopefully it'll warm things up a little bit. I think tomorrow is supposed to be better, so I think we're planning to do the walk tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen sooner. Maybe it'll happen today. We can go this afternoon. Well, we have the Two of Swords, and we haven't seen this one in a while. I love swords, particularly when the individual on the card, if there is one, is blindfolded. Because what that means, you see the water in the background, and it's kind of choppy. You've got the sky isn't particularly blue. It's more grayish. There's a crescent moon up in the sky, still visible. And she's in a white gown. She's got a white blindfold on. She's got her arms crossed in front of her with two swords. Anytime I see someone with blindfolds on, they're having to sort of block out the noise, either of what's going on in their head or what's going on around them, the chatter going on around them. When you see two, though, you're talking about balance. You're also talking about decisions. And so clearly today, we may be needing to make a decision about something. Whatever that is, either something's going on, personally in your life, or you have to make up your mind, though, about something today. And maybe there's just too much chatter, there's just too much noise. And so you need to block all of that out and look at whatever the situation is that you need to make a decision about. Look at it with a dispassionate view. So avoid the judgment, the emotional judgment. You've got the water behind her, so she's basically turned her back to it. She's turned her back to emotions right now, and she needs to focus on her intellect. But she needs to have everything be quiet so that she can think. Too much emotion maybe informing her decisions. And when that happens, I mean, sometimes that's the way to go. You let your heart knows, right? And so you make that, and so you ignore what reason's telling you, and you go with your gut maybe, or with your heart. Sometimes, though, when emotions are so high, it's just best to step back and find a more neutral focus before making the decision. You may still make the same decision, right? But at least you allow the emotions to settle before doing that. The other thing is, and we've talked about this before, if you're somebody given to a lot of emotion, like I am, or if you're empathic, and you're kind of trying to figure out, maybe you're new to the whole notion. You've just always viewed yourself as somebody with wacky emotions and all of that, and then suddenly you realize that that's really not what's going on, and in fact that it's other people's emotions that you're picking up. So one of the things that can be helpful in trying to discern, and I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to hate that word, discernment. Oh, you must use discernment to know this and that. Oh, well, whatever. The point is that there's a thing called your biorhythm chart. If you can, you can get an app for it. You can go online, and I'm sure you can find somewhere where you can do like a free biorhythm chart. Or if you have an iPad or something, or you have a smartphone, you can get a biorhythm app, and it's not a bad idea to know what your biorhythm is, particularly if you're trying to figure out, what you're feeling. Because if you look at it and you see what you're going to see, it's going to show your intellect, it's going to show your emotions, your spirituality, physicality, all of that. And it's going to show them in terms of sine waves. Okay, so it's going to look like this. You're going to have a bunch of lines that look like this, different colored ones, depending on what it's showing you. And if you look at that, you can get an idea of where your emotions are in any given moment, at least in terms of your biorhythm. And that's, of course, based on your birthday and all of that. Well, my point in all of this is that if you are emotional, if you are an emotional astrological sign, or if you're empathic, you're going to want to know where you are at any given moment. And so if you're in the peak or in the valley of the sine wave, then avoid the decisions there. Make them on the upswing and on the downswing, in that middle area. That's where you're going to want to make your decisions. So if you're really, really affected by emotion, I would advise you to do that. check out a biorhythm chart and see if that can kind of help you to and then pay attention when you're looking at it and you're seeing where you are in that moment. See if that aligns with how you feel. And so if it does, then you could use that then as a tool to try to figure out, how to get this done. Okay. Because sometimes, emotions are just too much and you need to shut them down in order to figure out where it is you need to go. So anyway, I want to count 13 more and take one more card and see if we can get some information about this decision that she needs to make. I mean, it could be something about something personal. It could be, yeah, I think it is. It's about greater wisdom. I think that because this is the Hermit, and here you can see he's retreating to the mountaintop. He's got his light there, his lantern lit. He's aligning in source presence. You see his staff. And the way it's drawn, he's perfectly still. He's perfectly aligned, isn't he? So it's really what it's really telling us is whatever is going on here today, it's deeply personal, whatever decision you have to make. And you definitely need to have spirit inform that process. So that's interesting. And it's interesting too because that's the 9th card of the major arcana, which aligns with today's numerology of completion. I mean, in a sense, you can think of it as full alignment with source when you think about completion. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a rune here, but I'm going to go ahead and use the willow runes I used from yesterday. Maybe we'll do that. Each week, use a different set of runes. I'm not going to use other than maybe the lapis ones, I'm not going to use the moonstone ones because you can't see them. When I get them up close to the screen, you can't really see it. See the rune that's on there, so. Anyhow, this is Rado. Soul journey. Even progression. It's the 5th rune of the Elder Futhark, and so we're talking about change with number 5. That's a number for change and fulfillment. So I'm thinking that how this is going to then align with this is that we've got some change, that whatever decision that she's going to make, it involves some change. So it could be inner change. Maybe there's just some stuff going on where, we've got to make a decision. Who are we going to be? How are we going to be in the world? How are we going to approach things? Maybe we've done some soul searching and maybe there's just something about us that we want to change that maybe isn't working for us anymore. And so, we've gone to the mountaintop, so to speak, and aligned in source presence. And now we're ready to make, whatever change we need to make. But the idea here behind Rado isn't so much about the outcome. It's more about the process we take along the way. So maybe we're not so willing to, maybe we're more given to impulsive action, and maybe what today's reading is telling us that we need to be a little more observant of the process. And maybe the process of lack of impulse, because that's a process. If you think about it, it's a process. How one responds is a process. And so if you're responding with a lack of impulse control and you're just sort of letting ego inform everything that's going on and you're flitting from here and there, maybe you're just letting, your emotions take you places instead of remaining in control of them. So with Rado, you're basically finding your true purpose. You're trying to figure out who the real you is and what that really looks like. And so perhaps this is giving us an insight, either we're just involved a lot in situations that are upsetting or chaotic or what have you, or perhaps that's just how we are within. And if that's the case, then perhaps what we're trying to do is reach a better balance within in terms of mind, body, spirit, between intellect and emotions. Maybe we're just trying to strike a better balance and be less impulsive, for example. Um, the idea is that we need to be focused on truth, justice, right order. We need to be going in a positive direction. And sometimes, if we can't see things clearly, then we may have a hard time doing that. So perhaps then what we're really talking about today is the process within that we take to achieve all of that. So that inner stasis, that ability to just find that balance between head and heart so that we can make a better decision about where we're going. But honestly, this has a, instead of an external feel, this really, particularly with Rado, I mean, Rado can mean travel, you know, it could mean that you're trying to make a decision where you're going on vacation. You know, maybe you want to take a more spiritual journey or versus one, you know, that's something else. But I don't know, you know, it to me when I see the Hermit and Rado together, and turning your back on things and the chaos of emotion and the chaos of what's going on, I just look at that as an inner journey. So if that's what's happening for you today, well, that's cool. The day's good for that. If it does have to do though with something external in your life, a decision you're trying to make, or you're trying to make it amidst a bunch of chaos, well, I feel for you. You know, that's an awful place to be. But again, you know, uh, put a blindfold on to all of it. You know, turn your back to the chaos and just align in source presence and let the inner voice guide you. It's likely to give you far more of a realistic and appropriate, you know, outcome in terms of, you know, what your process ought to be. You know, it's going to inform you of where you need to go and how you need to do it. So far better than ego will ever do. So in any event, well, that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun when it all sort of aligns together like that. I love synchronicities. Anyhow, I was lazy last night and I did not finish the lunar transits until this morning. So I got up early, and that's why I'm doing this early, because I was here at the desk and I finished that. So that's up. Lunar transits are up. Moon's in Pisces and or about to be, and not quite yet, but it's going to move into Pisces today. So a little emotional. 11th house, you know, that's, you know, friendships and all of that, but it's also about, you know, maybe today you're going to maybe not feel so much like socializing. Maybe this is how you're going to feel, and you just need to maybe go inward. So there's a little synchronicity with the lunar transits over the next couple of days as well. You know, a little Piscean, you know, emotion, but at the same time, and that's been going on here lately. Our emotions have kind of been in flux with the moon's influence, you know. But today, you know, we're kind of feeling drawn out to go see people, but maybe not, you know, maybe you want to take another day before doing that. You know, sometimes when our emotions are in flux, it's hard to really know what to do. And so I've always found that when that's the case, do nothing, just do nothing, hide out, you know, don't do anything at all. So anyhow, that's up on the blog. And I also did a Thoth tarot reading. That's also up on the blog. I just love that tarot deck. It is just the coolest thing ever. I mean, I did it with the larger. I have both the smaller version and the larger version, and I mean the cards are they're just stunning. And I don't know. Lady Frida Harris, she was incredible. She just got it. I don't know how she was able to do it. If you read Lon Milo DuQuette's book, Understanding the Thoth Tarot, if you read that, he includes excerpts from letters that they wrote, Crowley and Lady Harris wrote back to, you know, between one another, trying to figure out what to do with these interpretations that he had, and how she could, you know, paint them basically. And I don't know, she painted energy into the cards. They're just beautiful. but it's not a traditional deck, and you're either going to respond to it or you're not, and a lot of people don't. So I just find it fascinating. There's just so much there, and it's just another aspect. It's a hermetic aspect of things. It's just very Kabbalistic. It's just a very cool deck. So even if you just check it out, even if it doesn't speak to you, I think it's well worth looking at and taking a look at the different interpretations that the Hermetic folks have got for them. So anyhow, the Golden Dawn people, they're really interesting. That's ceremonial magic. It's just a different type of approach to things. So and it's very interesting. I think I'm really fascinated by it. So not something I would embrace necessarily, but I think that they have a lot of really interesting ideas and interesting ways of looking at magic and how we see the world and creation and all of that stuff. So well worth a look. Anyhow, so thanks so much for coming by. If you're new, welcome. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. If you're coming back, thank you so much. Anyhow, today's Wednesday, so I will indeed see you tomorrow. I do these 4 days a week, and Monday through Thursday. And be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.